Our guest this evening is Jack Spurko, and he has a podcast over there. It's called thesurvivalpodcast.com. You can check it out. Jack, I was listening to one of your shows a while back, and you were going 65 miles an hour down the highway and doing a show. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, I did that for right up until January 1st. My first year and a half doing my show. It was recorded, I would say, about 98% of the time during my commute between my home and my office up in Frisco, Texas, which is about a 50-mile drive. And, yeah, I did that, and I don't know, it was something that seemed impossible to do from day one when I first thought, hey, I'll try this. And I was kind of inspired by a pretty cool guy that does a podcast of his own named Chris Future that does a podcast. It's really, kind of a libertarian podcast, libertarian politics podcast. And I said, well, if he can do it, maybe I can do it. And I guess it turns out I can run my mouth good enough that I could pull that off. And now I do my show from home most of the time. I'm now full-time with my show. So it took about a year and a half to go from one guy and a recorder to an audience and a thriving business, which does say something about how much interest there is in this stuff now. Yeah,
absolutely. So you started just, I think, 1 month before I started doing radio. I think you started in June of 08, right?
Yep. Yeah, and you know what really did it for me? Back in the tech bubble bust with the stock market, my gut told me to bail, and I didn't. And like most Americans, my 401k and my retirement accounts and everything got cut in half. And I watched for years and years it kind of ebb and flow and finally get back and actually go into a profit from that time. And this time around, I looked at it and went, I'm not falling for it again. This is going to be way worse than last time. And it was, of course. Yeah. And I thought, if nothing else, I can get out there and I can talk about basic preparedness and I can scream at people, get out now. There's still time. And I don't know, probably my first big paycheck is the way I looked at it from doing the show. It had nothing to do with direct money. It was a guy that sent me an email that said he was 63 years old, getting ready to retire, and decided that maybe I was right and pulled all of his money out, and he was still able to retire because he didn't take it on the chin when this happened. And that type of thing is really the type of thing that, in emails like that from 100 different subjects, is what's really fired me up and made me do this thing nonstop. Because I know that people are actually paying attention and listening and protecting themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your day job?
I'm a marketing guy by trade, an internet marketing person by trade. And I actually was a partner in a company, and I still own that company, but I had kind of a weird arrangement where I had a couple of the partner companies that we had on a retainer, so it was kind of like being on a salary, and I was basically their head of marketing. We took a few independent clients, and completely walked away from that, and we still do some informational product marketing and stuff like that with the partner that I have in that company, but no longer employed, no longer have a benefit schedule and everything like that. It's a bit scary stepping out, but my audience has been great, and it's worked out well.
Yeah, and you are in Texas, correct?
That's correct, in Arlington, which is between Dallas and Fort Worth.
Dallas and yeah. Yeah,
some people say, don't tell anybody where you're at. They already know.
Sure they do.
Come on,
Yeah, in the old days, a detective only needed to go through 2 days of trash to figure out your politics, your religion, how often you were having sex, all sorts of stuff he could figure out with just 2 days of trash. And now look at this. They've got access to every email, every phone conversation, everything. They know us better than we know ourselves, I reckon.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you and I are on watch lists or whatever, but, that's the price for speaking the truth.
Oh, yeah. You got to get out there. I don't want to look back over my shoulder and wish that I had done something. And I'm sure you do too. Hey, I'd like to get into some specifics. Like you talked about 4 rules for storing food. Can we just go through some of this information for my listeners?
Sure, and trying to abbreviate it so we don't turn the whole show into that. Basically, I have 4 rules for food storage. And rule 1 is an old axiom, and it's eat what you store and store what you eat. And what that means is that just look around your house, look at the things that you eat every day that have a long shelf life, anything more than 3 months without refrigeration, and begin to accumulate and acquire more and more of that. You can get to about 30 days of sustainability that way fairly easy. You'll probably end up with about 60 to 90 days worth of that food. And the reason you'll do that is because in that situation, you won't be using that food as a primary food source, if that makes sense, right? You'll be, maybe instead of pasta and sauce, you'll add meat. Well, in a survival situation or a long-term situation, you may not have the meat, so you'll use it faster. So you end up with about 60 to 90 days worth of that food for common off-the-shelf use and maybe 30 days to 45 days of sustainability about that. Then you move on to bringing in some long-term storage foods into that environment. So these are the items like you sell in your store, the Mountain House stuff, the Yoder stuff, Provident Pantry, all that stuff, freeze-dried foods, and you use those as extenders and adjuncts. And you continue to build both sides of that, right? So you want to continue to build up the eat what you store, you eat stuff, and bring in the long-term storage. And I really advise people to take some of that long-term storage food and occasionally use it. Become accustomed to it. Learn how to prepare it. Make sure that you like it. If you try something and it's really good, that's an item to increase in your long-term storage. If you try it and you don't like it, don't be a knucklehead. Don't buy any more of that. As you do this, you get the opportunity to practice Rule 3, which is practice opportunity buys. Opportunity buy means if I have 60 days or 90 days worth of food in my home and I go to the store and, gee, they've jacked up the price of something I usually buy, guess what? I don't buy it that week. And when they put it on sale, I go buy an awful lot of it, and I increase my storage that way. So that's Rule 3. Rule 4 is become a producer, and this is something you do as well. Make sure that you're growing and producing your own food, and this takes several forms. This can be guerrilla gardening, like I saw your video on Google Video, which is really cool, where you're out in the woods, making a guerrilla garden.
Let's take a quick break, Jack.
Big John knows what's a-coming for him, and you. That's why he's prepared to fight all alone if need be. Hang around a bit longer and see if you wake up from your stupor.
Let me remind all of you that Thursday, which is tomorrow, at least I think it is, we have Randy from Kentucky, and we're going to be discussing homesteading. And I know a lot of you are waiting for that. But tonight we have Jack Spurko, the survivalpodcast.com, and we're finishing up the 4 rules for storing food, according to Jack. Jack, you were talking about on the 4th one is to create your own food supply by what you grow.
Right, to be a producer.
Yeah.
But a producer takes on so many things if we're smart about the way we do it. There's all the gardening. I'm very big into permaculture. If you listen to my show, you know that. And the guerrilla gardening type of things, the survival gardening types of things, like I was talking about your video that I saw on Google Videos. Watched that a couple days ago. I thought it was very cool. But then we also have to look at being a producer in the realm of foraging what's wildly available for us and fish and game. Now, the thing about that is in a survival situation, which I'm sure you know, that stuff is going to come under immense pressure immediately, right? And it's going to go down in its availability. So we can only rely on it now. But if we take in the other side of being a producer, which is actually producing storables, which means learning how to do things like dehydrate, learning how to can, learning how to make jerky, learning how to smoke, learning how to build root cellars, then we can take all of our own production, and we can even take production from things that we buy, and we can produce our own long-term storables that way. So then we end up with this holistic process, right, where we have food that we're producing directly and long-term storables that we're producing indirectly. Long-term storables that we're purchasing because they're made for the job, storing what we eat and eating what we store, and using all of this together, combined, to have enough redundancy with food in our homes to abstain from purchasing certain items at certain times because the price is high or we haven't yet found a good opportunity for them. That gives us more buying power, and we can buy more of the things we need as they become available at an opportunity. We do all that, we end up with this amazingly flexible food storage system. It's extremely portable, and we have the production piece in it because we've got to have that, because I don't care if you're a multimillionaire. You can only store so much food between space and cost. So storage itself is finite. So it's only a piece of the puzzle. We've got to add a production capacity to it. And if we do those two things together, we have an amazing amount of resiliency. Growing your own food's great, but let's realize that we could have a catastrophe happen in the wintertime when it's really hard to grow anything. And as long as we have a good stockpile of food to make it through to a time where we can start to rely on it, on our own production, we'll be okay. But if we don't put the two together, either side of the equation fails, and the whole thing can fall apart. Because wherever you're weakest, that's where disaster will always hit you.